Hi, I'm Dorothy. Are you ready to dive deep into one of the bougiest zip codes in the country? The good, the bad, the ups and downs, the real and the not so real. This is That Greenwich Life. This show is sponsored by Party Host Helpers and The Big Picture. If you're throwing a party or event and need help, just like I did recently, Party Host Helpers provides nationwide service for all your party staffing needs. Their bartenders came to my rescue mixing up delicious cocktails for my guests, and their general helpers did all the dirty post-party cleanup. Learn more today at partyhosthelpers.com or give them a call at 844-30-PARTY. The Big Picture is an arts and crafts store in Riverside, Connecticut with a mission to create a brighter world through art. They sell unique and creative gifts and offer workshops and drop-in crafting with DIY tables to make endless creative projects. Check them out at thebigpictureart.com. And special thanks to Pod Populi Studios. They take the hard parts out of podcasting. Now, let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of That Greenwich Life. Today is a really exciting episode because I have a very special guest. She is, first of all, my best friend from high school. I feel like I know a celebrity, but she is the anxiety healer on Instagram. She has 572,000 followers. She's followed by celebrities like Carson Daly, Chrissy Metz from This Is Us. She also has her own podcast, The Anxiety Chicks, which you should definitely check out. It's a great show. She's an author. The Anxiety Healer's Guide, Coping Strategies and Mindfulness Techniques to Calm the Mind and Body is her first book. And now she has a second book that is available for clinicians, The Anxiety Healer's Guide for Clinicians, which you can pre-order on Amazon. Her name is Allison Seponara, and I am so happy to welcome her into the Pod Populi studio today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
I feel so lucky to be here and grateful. So thank you.
I love you. So the reason that I asked Allie, which I have to call her Allie because that's just who she is to me.
Yes.
The reason that I asked Allie to join me today is because now that there have been a few episodes of That Greenwich Life, I have been able to really kind of reflect on what the show is and what I want it to be and what it is not, and also what this experience has been. And I have struggled. I've really struggled. I'm going to be honest with you guys. And I have struggled big time with something that we call imposter syndrome. It's kind of weird to be on the podcast talking about how I have imposter syndrome about the podcast, but I promised you in the beginning that this was going to be an honest place to discuss things that are affecting all of us. And I'm pretty sure that if you're human, you're having imposter syndrome right now about something, or you have in the past, or you will in the future, right? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, Allie and I have talked about this, and she's given me a lot of great encouragement, but we tend to have these moments in our lives where you're embarking on something new, which podcasting is very new for me. You know, the whole idea of speaking into a microphone, speaking in front of an audience, that's not new for me. I've built a career of doing that, doing celebrity news and working with brands and going on TV networks around the country. But this idea of doing something different and outside of my comfort zone, it has been hard. I have struggled. And Allie has been an incredible support for me. And she's an incredible support for others. She has her own private clients. She's licensed in the state of Pennsylvania as a therapist. She's my therapist. I get her for free, so that's good.
No, I'm not. That's bad practice. She's kidding.
But anyway, we're going to talk about this concept of imposter syndrome. So Allie, can you just kind of give us your description of what this is?
Yeah.
For people that don't know.
Well, you know, you started talking a little bit about your journey and your career. And in your very first episode, which I loved, you talked a lot about how you felt like you were made to speak into a microphone. And just, you're so great on TV. You have such big personality. It just fits with what you do, right? You're so good at it. I did not have that at all growing up. I knew I wanted to be a therapist. I wanted to be a helper. And I've never been more sure in my life of my career choice. Everything else in my life, I question every single minute of the day.
That's the anxiety.
Yeah.
Right?
And imposter syndrome.
Yep.
So, you know, this is such a perfect episode for me to be on because, you saying that you still kind of struggle with that with what you are totally meant to be doing right now. It just like boggles my mind. Like I would never think that you would be still having those thoughts about maybe, you're not doing enough or this isn't the way this person's doing it. So essentially imposter syndrome is just what it sounds like. You are doing something and it could be in your career. It could be in other parts of your life where you kind of feel
in relationships, right? Like if you meet somebody and you feel like you're not good enough for them. There's a lot of that, right? Continue.
Well, you feel like you're an imposter in the situation. You don't feel like what you're saying matters. And you don't feel as though what you're saying is valuable. So you're thinking all the time, why would people want to hear what I say? Why would anyone want to actually listen to me?
Why would this person want to be with me? Why would this potential employer want to hire me?
100%.
Right.
And so as far as my career goes now, it's totally took a left turn a couple of years ago, which I'm so happy about and I love. But essentially I started a private therapy practice in Pennsylvania in like 2017. And that was my goal. I thought maybe I wanted to grow and to have employees and just make this big practice outside of Philadelphia. And then I decided that I really wanted to use social media. Instagram was really just starting to go. And I was always someone that knew that we needed to spread awareness about mental health.
Absolutely.
I didn't care who was going to think I was weird or crazy. Well, that's imposter syndrome, right? I thought I didn't care about that stuff. So I just started like putting things out on Instagram. I changed my handle from Therapy with Allie to the Anxiety Healer. That kind of blew up. At that time, there was maybe only 5 other mental health influencers on Instagram.
You were right at the beginning of it.
So I grew very fast. Mm-hmm. Now it's totally saturated with wonderful people and great content with mental health content. But I, had some personal things happen and couldn't really monetize the way that I think I wanted to back then, but it doesn't matter. So with that imposter syndrome, that's really, it comes up for me now. Right. There's so many amazing creators on social media now that are in the mental health and wellness space. And I constantly am comparing myself to them. I'm thinking I am totally like not worth this. I don't know why people are still following me or listening to me. I'm trying to rebrand a little bit.
Which is crazy, by the way, because if you visit Allison, I have to call you Allie. I'm not going to call you Allison. It's not happening. If you visit Allie's Instagram, The Anxiety Healer, you will see this incredible content that she puts out, and everything that she posts is so real. It's so raw. It's so authentic. She'll film herself first thing in the morning, waking up with no makeup, no filter. I am not that courageous just yet, but she has transformed so many people's lives, and she has helped so many people through this. And my real the thing that gave me courage to do this episode is really this conversation that we had a few weeks back, where she was saying to me, my following is not growing. Like I'm not getting more followers. I don't know what's going on with the Instagram algorithm, which nobody knows what's going on with the Instagram algorithm, but that's another story. But she was saying, like, I'm not getting more followers. I'm losing followers. These other people are putting this content out and they're doing the most simplest of things and they're getting so many likes. And I was out walking my dog and my baby in the stroller, and I actually stopped walking because I couldn't believe that somebody with 5, again, like at the time that this podcast is being recorded, if you're listening to this, 2 or 3 years down the road, but at this moment in time, 572,000 followers on Instagram. They're not bots. They're not purchased. Like, they're people that have anxiety, that are hurting in their life, and they are people that are looking to Allie for guidance. And so to hear somebody have that level of imposter syndrome, and then at the same time, I was kind of starting this podcast up, I thought to myself, this is a good conversation because, again, it goes to my whole theme of That Greenwich Life. If you listen to my trailer, if you go back onto Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you're listening, and you go back and you listen to my trailer, you will find that one of my biggest goals is to send the message that, yes, I live in Greenwich, Connecticut, where there's a whole boatload of uber wealthy people with private planes and yachts and all sorts of things. Just last night, we were out to dinner, Allie and I, and we saw this huge, like midnight black yacht roll up, with like this gorgeous red leather seating. Like, I don't have a yacht, but there's lots of people. But anyway, the thing that I'm really trying to drive home is that no matter how rich or poor you are, no matter if you have 1 million followers or you have, 4,000 and some followers like me, you still experience this feeling of not being enough and not being good enough. Mm-hmm. And so, when I was creating this podcast, I went through this a lot, and I almost didn't even come in for the initial recording because I didn't know what the podcast was going to be. I didn't know what it should be. I didn't know what people wanted it to be. I didn't know what I wanted it to be. But I just had this like small voice. I guess it's your gut, where it's hard to listen to because life is so busy and hectic. But if you get really quiet, you can really hear this voice. And it just was saying, like, just go in and do it. Like, just do it. You don't need to know what it is. You don't need to have a whole script written out. You don't have to be anything other than just you. And I don't know why, but I listened to that voice and I just came in and I did it. And if you listened to episode 1, there's things about it that I'm proud of, and there's things about it that I would love to change and that I don't like. And it didn't come across the way that I wanted, and I wish I had more. But the point is, like, you sometimes have to just get started. And so
Totally.
when you have all these doubts and you're just like listening to all these doubts, like I remember I was in the nail salon, okay? And I was getting my powder gel done. And I remember thinking to myself, I need some guidance on this imposter syndrome and how to quiet it. And I was basically listening to this podcast. My friend Jamie Hess has this incredible new podcast, Gratitudeology. You should totally check it out. And this woman, Natasha Graziano, I never heard of her. I didn't know who she was before this. This just like came across my feed. She said, imposter syndrome is the step before winning. The feeling to tell you you're in the right place, that something greater is about to come. And I thought to myself, I really latched onto that. Isn't that really like a great way of putting it? Like what a way to reframe a scary and kind of daunting thing that you're feeling. I think that made me say, like, okay, you know what? You have to just shut this down and you have to just do it and be you and try to be authentically you and know that, like you do deserve this opportunity, So.
Well, I love that. I think that you said it perfectly, that she puts it in a way that's reframing it into, the voices that we hear in our head, right? When we're feeling really anxious or we're feeling really insecure about ourselves, they can be very loud. And so a huge piece of trying to work on imposter syndrome is what we say to ourselves and how we say it to ourselves. And that is a wonderful way to, like, I would write that down somewhere on like 5 different Post-its and put it up around my apartment so I could see that every day.
Yes.
And read it every day and start training my brain to really believe that. Because when it comes to imposter syndrome, like, now me and you have talked about this a lot, how you've had confidence in yourself, and not in this like narcissistic way. You just have always been confident in yourself that I admire. I admire so much, and I always have. And I sometimes really wish, I think I said this to you a couple of weeks ago, what can I do? How do you do that? I get that? Because this all runs in together with imposter syndrome and my own anxiety and my self-esteem and really my core belief of just not feeling like I'm enough a lot of times. Mm-hmm. And, you basically just gave me some awesome wisdom about myself that it just resonated with me about kind of like going out there, getting outside of your comfort zone and being proud of who I am.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
sharing so much about why you feel proud of me. And sometimes the voice in my head is hearing you talk and say those things, but I'm saying, I don't believe that. No,
Right.
I'm not.
Right.
No, I'm not. Like what you just said all about my page.
Right. When you were telling me about these other influencers, I don't think you were talking about the actual legitimate mental health practitioners that are creating really valuable content. I think you were talking more about everything that's kind of wrong with social media and Instagram these days. These people that have 1 million followers and they're like eating a hot dog and that's how they, they have all these likes,
yes.
right? And I said, and I said, the thing is, you are making such a huge impact on people and you're helping people in such a way that maybe these people are making tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars doing kind of these silly things on social media, but you're doing something that's so impactful. And so you have to kind of like remember that, sometimes the way that we measure ourselves is broken because our worth is almost being measured on this broken scale. And so that's something that we really have to watch out for and look for in our day-to-day.
100%.
Like, how am I measuring my worth? Am I measuring it by how much money I make? And am I telling everybody about how much money I make? Or am I measuring it by how beautiful I am? And walking around and wearing like skimpy clothes and, with my ladies all hanging out, and I don't know, like there's a lot of ways that people measure themselves and try to prove their worth to others that are unhealthy.
Yeah. So exactly.
We see plenty of it in Greenwich, but I know people see it everywhere.
I mean, the fact is, it doesn't matter where you live, what you look like, how you identify, anything. Everybody has like this internal conflict with themselves at one point or another, whether they're making the right choice or they're, on this journey that they're supposed to be in life. But there's always going to be insecurities for everybody. It's in some shape, way, or form. And the best part is, and what we can do, like you talk about self-worth, we really need to try and learn how to seek internal validation from ourselves.
That's right.
And not external validation.
Oh my gosh, that's exactly right. And on that note, I will say, as you all know, if you've tuned in before, the person who I am now is a very different person than the person who I was for all of the years before, like 5 years ago. And Allie knows that person from before. We refer to her as her. That person, I went through a lot of really debilitating pregnancy loss and a really difficult infertility journey, which we will talk about. I lost a baby at 21 weeks. This happened in 2019. I will talk about that more. It was the most traumatic, darkest, most horrible experience. And those years of my life were so just really sad and dark. And there was so much death inside my body that I almost felt like I was dying at certain points, even maybe that I wanted to die at certain points, which is, I don't say that lightly. But the person who existed for 38 years prior to going through all of that and being cut down to my core, that person was a TV star, and that person was on all the red carpets interviewing celebrities for People Magazine and Life and Style and In Touch Weekly, and that person was on the Today Show and the Wendy Williams Show and all dressed up and going to a million things and parties and so important. But that person was a pretty depressed person on the inside, and I definitely, I say this because I thrived on external validation. I have a very unique family situation, which at some point down the road, I will perhaps talk about on the show or perhaps not. But I went through a lot as a child, as a teenager, and external validation was the thing that like it saved me in a way, because in going through all of these really difficult things with my parents having a really ugly, horrible divorce, as a kid, I was constantly performing and I was constantly singing and dancing and putting on shows. And, I wrote a play when I was in like third grade and had, my friends put it on about like the Radical Rockers, I mean, it was ridiculous. It was called Just Say No or Get Out of the Show. And it was like a message about, against drugs, about this girl group that got together. It was kind of like, the Spice Girls of like the 90s, the early 80s even.
Okay.
But I did all these things. Like creativity was my outlet. It was the way that I coped. But it turned me into somewhat of an attention whore. And it manifested through my 20s with being single and dating and, attention from men. And it manifested, in a good way, it led me to my career. And, this is kind of, I think, what I was born to do, to talk into a microphone and to perform. I do really enjoy it. But I was getting external validation and there was nothing happening inside. There was nobody on the inside saying, hey, you know what? Like, you're really special and you're really loved and you're really important, not because of your long blonde hair and not because of what you're wearing or, the fact that you just landed a spot on Chelsea Handler's roundtable of Chelsea Lately and like your magazine flew you out to LA to appear on it. And then you hung out with Ryan Seacrest and Randy Jackson, gave you his email address later on that night at like a private Beverly Hills mansion. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying there was nothing on the inside. And I think that does, and now it does feel different because now this has been scary. And I think now the reason I've had imposter syndrome so much in launching this podcast is because this person now does not really look to other people to tell me how great of a job I did or how great I am or how pretty I am or how smart I am. Although I don't feel very smart these days with having a baby a year ago. My brain has turned to absolute garbage. But it's not that I don't care about people's opinions, truly, because we all do. We're all human, right? But I don't need other people to tell me that I'm worthy. Like I went through hell. I went through the worst years of my life and I had so much negative self-talk. Mm-hmm. And I had in my mind during my infertility journey, this is actually so messed up. And I'm sure that anyone who's tried to have a baby or has tried to do anything that's not happening for you, whatever you're looking for in your life that's just not happening. I had this belief that I was not able to have a baby because I wasn't worthy of it, that I was so broken. I feel like I'm actually going to cry right now, but I was so broken on the inside. And my nervous system was so wrecked from a million years of just living through a difficult situation. But I had this feeling that my infertility was because I wasn't worthy of having a baby. Now, meanwhile, I had my son Nicholas, he's 8.5 now, and I had him at the time. And I knew that being a mom was one of the best things that I've done. Like, I know that I'm a good mom. I know that I can say that because I know that it's something that I am good at. But I had in my mind that I was not good enough. The other people who were telling me that they were pregnant, my other friends who during that time, I had so many friends get pregnant by mistake, even like friends that had shut the door, like kitchen closed, given away all their kids' toys, all their kids' clothes, and then got pregnant, like out of the blue. It was really painful. And I had during that dark time that these people were more whole as people than I was. And it was really hard. And so like, whatever people are going through, if you're looking for love, if you're looking for a new job, and you're getting passed over you're going for like a 6th round of interviews for a new job, and then you end up not getting the job. It's hard.
Yeah.
And you have to really be able to, in your heart of hearts and in your mind, know that it's not personal and it's not because you're not worthy or you're not good enough or somebody else is so much better than you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think once you start to embrace that and you start to kind of understand that maybe that just wasn't the right job for you, even if it was your dream job. Sometimes the universe knows better than we do.
Yeah. Well, also, you said something about people's opinions, do they matter? Do I care? Yes, I think everybody does care, whatever, it's like a spectrum, right? Everybody does care a little bit about what other people think, right? But the thing with imposter syndrome is, even if someone else is telling you on repeat how amazing you are and how wonderful and all these great things, your brain doesn't believe that.
Right.
Because you don't think internally that you are actually enough and worthy, which is why the internal validation and practicing that and learning how to do that for yourself is so important. Because if you never had gotten to that point in your life of knowing that you needed to do that for yourself, you would constantly be on this roller coaster of trying to prove to other people to get attention and to prove to everyone else like how successful you are as far as money. And what does success mean, by the way? You know, like I always say, first of all, Dorothy and our lives couldn't be more different, and we're best friends. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment in Philly, outside Philly, and I'm single. I have no kids, and I'm like living my best life. I love it, and so is she. And we have totally different lifestyles, but we're both so happy now in what we're doing. And so I think that you know, being able to understand more about how you can also find gratitude in your daily life with what you have and who you're around, and also gratitude for yourself and your body and your mental health and your physical health, and kind of creating a toolkit for yourself. That's kind of the basis of my book, The Anxiety Healer's Guide.
And there's such incredible tools in there. I mean, this is a book that you can take it with you wherever you go. You can leave it in your car even, and you can open a page and you can flip the page to something you can do in that moment that can help with your anxiety. That's what I love about it. Yeah. It's not just a book about anxiety and talking about anxiety. It's like, what can you actually do?
Yes.
Right? Which also probably people right now are asking, okay, well, what can I do? Like, I'm identifying with everything that you're saying about imposter syndrome, but what can I do? Which we are going to get to the weekly work on, because each week on this show, I offer a weekly work on. Just like we have our weekly workout, this is a weekly work on. And it's something for you to think about.
Yeah.
As your week goes on, as you're going around and doing things, you're going to the gym, you're hanging out with your kids, you're going to work, whatever you're doing, something around your house even. Maybe you're like cleaning your bathroom, who knows? But it's just like a moment for you to take for yourself. We all have so many balls in the air that we feel like we're dropping them at all times. But this is something that you can do if 100%. You just keep it in mind. So this week, I want you to just one morning, bonus points if you do it 2 mornings, 4 mornings, or all 7 mornings. But one morning, when you go to your sink, you're brushing your teeth, you're brushing your hair, before you run downstairs to get your kids off to the bus, before you run downstairs to make your coffee and head to your job, to work, however your morning spent, I want you to look in that mirror and I want you to say out loud, I am enough. I'm worthy of everything that happens for me today. I am enough. I'm worthy of everything that happens for me today. Okay? I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be sharing it on my Instagram at Dorothy on TV. I ask you to please share with me on Instagram how it worked for you, because affirmations, and I'm going to throw this back to Allie, but affirmations are so important. And by the way, if you're sitting there kind of thinking, no, I'm not going to do that. That's not me. Like, my husband will be, getting dressed for work and he'll think it's weird or whatever. This is probably something you want to do if no one's in the room, I think. I don't think it's something you want to do when people are around. But if you're doubting it right now, I'm going to tell you this. Take the first step. It's a tiny first step. It doesn't cost you anything. In taking the first step, we plow through any kind of doubt that we're having, and we just force ourselves to do it. And affirmations, Allie, actually do have the power to rewire the way that we think, right?
100%. I mean, this is science. There's so much research based on it. I think there's misconceptions about affirmations. Some people on Instagram, they talk about it in a silly way. But it is actually really serious work that can help rewire your brain. I do talk about how they can be successful and exactly break down what you can do to really start feeling more comfortable doing them in my book. And so I think that it's important for you to, yes, I think when you're starting this process, be alone. And if you are struggling with kind of remembering what to say, like this statement, I really would suggest, like I said before that I do, writing this down
on a
post-it and putting it on your mirror.
That's
a
great idea.
See it every day. And in the morning, you wake up and you look at yourself and you say it out loud, but you do it really intentionally. It's not going to work if you're just looking in the mirror and you're kind of saying, I am enough. Okay, I'm going to be worthy for stuff that I do today. Bye. It's just not that.
Right.
You have to really kind of tap in
to the energy and to the intention.
100%. Be really intentional about it and really, really think about that and look at yourself in the eye, in the mirror.
Ooh.
That's the hardest part.
I love that. You have to really look at yourself in the mirror, make eye contact with yourself.
Yeah.
I know that I know there are some of you that are feeling very cringe right now about this. It's not supposed to be
comfortable.
That's right. That's what I was just going to say. It's not supposed to be comfortable. It's not supposed to be something that you're waking up in the morning and like raring to go do.
Yeah.
Because the only way that we can grow, truly, I know this from my own experiences, the only way that we can grow is by digging into the really uncomfortable stuff that doesn't feel second nature to us.
Yeah.
Because guess what, guys? If it felt second nature to you to see yourself in the mirror or to see your reflection in a store window that you're walking past and thinking something really positive and great about yourself, which none of us do this, you wouldn't be needing this. We wouldn't even be talking about this.
Yeah.
Like the idea is that so many of us truly do need a lot more self-worth and self-love and kind self-talk.
100%. If you feel like you're starting this process and you are trying this tomorrow morning, for example, and you start really getting emotional and maybe you want to start crying, because that's happened to me plenty of times when I'm doing mirror work, that's okay. Like step away. You don't have to do it right that second. We suggest the morning because then it starts your day off right. But this can be a really emotional process for a lot of people. And when you look at yourself and you think like you really have this deep belief you're not enough and you're actually telling yourself you are and you're looking at yourself, it can be emotional. And so it's okay to step away and then come back at a time that maybe if your kid's at school and you have an hour or so and try it. And then really journal about it and reflect on it.
Wow, that is fascinating. I wouldn't think so. I've never done this. So this is going to be my weekly work on too. And like I said, I'm going to be sharing on my Instagram at Dorothy on TV. And I hope you're going to share with me your experience as well. And of course, with the anxiety healer on Instagram as well.
Tag me.
Please
for sure.
please tag Allie too. But I've never done this and I'm going to do it. But it's interesting because I think people think about crying, which this will be a whole other episode at some point about grief and about crying and healing. But when you do have a lot of emotion like that to the point of tears, instead of moving away from that, you really have to embrace that and you have to see it as a sign that you need healing, that you're doing the healing and that you're doing the work. It's a positive thing.
Yes.
Even though some people feel it's a strength, not a weakness.
Not a weakness.
Right. Exactly.
It's a strength.
Exactly.
And I allow myself to cry. Even just talking about this 30 seconds ago, I was like, I'm going to start crying. I'm also a highly sensitive person. So I can basically cry
HSP.
at like...
We're going to do an episode on HSPs too,
like
a highly sensitive
seeing
person.
someone do something nice outside the window, I'll start crying. Like... So
absolutely. Well, on that note, I'm just going to say it one more time, what you're going to be saying for yourself in the mirror. I am enough. I'm worthy of everything that happens for me today. And I want to see how that changes things for you. And I'm curious as to how it will change things for me. So on that note, I want to thank my special guest, Allie Seponera.
Thank you.
My best friend from high school, The Anxiety Healer. You have to check her out on Instagram at The Anxiety Healer. Pick up her book on Amazon. It's incredible. The Anxiety Healer's Guide, Coping Strategies and Mindfulness Techniques to Calm the Mind and Body. And she has a new book. If you are a clinician, if you are a mental health professional, she has a new book out, The Anxiety Healer's Guide for Clinicians, and you can pre-order that on Amazon. And also check out her podcast, The Anxiety Chicks, which I've been a guest on your podcast for several episodes.
Sure have.
And I'm just so grateful that you were able to be here today in Greenwich at Pod Populi Studios. Huge thank you to Pod Populi. They take all the hard parts out of podcasting. And please follow the show on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Please like it. Please give it a review if you can. I wouldn't hate it if you dropped the link to the show in a group text or two for somebody else that you think might enjoy the show and might relate to it. Special thank you to my sponsors, Party Host Helpers, and The Big Picture. And I can't wait to see y'all next week. And remember, don't just live your life, love it.